Hello, everybody. This is Rabbi Orel David with the On Apology podcast, or radio, or whatever it is. Um, we're here to talk today about an interesting concept that is called Judaism and aliens. Now, when I'm saying aliens, I can say little green man or little gray men or aliens when it refers to in Judaism are basically things that are out of this world, things that are not part of our world or our um, interaction with the world, things that are familiar to us as human society, and we can see consistency within Judaism that mention things that are out of this world, that are alien to us as humanity. And what is the Jewish perspective on that? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about different mentioning throughout the Torah and Hebrew writings and tractates where it's basically mentioned or discusses things that are out of this world. And that's it. We're gonna talk about that, and everybody can conclude whatever they conclude. You can ask me questions later. Let me know also what you think, and subscribe and share. Let's begin. It says like this: 10 things was created, 10 דברים נבראו, בין השמשות, a twilight of Shabbat Eve. So we know the world was created in the book of Genesis by God, and the world was created in 6 days, and the seventh day was a day of rest. In Pirkei Avot, which is translated to uh, the ethics of our fathers, but it's basically was an assembly of rabbis that when the second temple was destroyed, they all gathered in one place and they brought into writing certain teachings that they had, certain knowledge that they had, to preserve it and to set forth some kind of encyclopedia, we can say, for future generations, because they didn't know what's going to happen. They knew the temple was destroyed, and they didn't know how the destruction of the temple might um, affect Jewish world, and we know that the Romans massacred millions of Jews, and the rabbis was really afraid. So they brought everything down into writing. So one of the things that they brought into writing was that idea that there was 10 things that was created in the eve of Shabbat. What are those? What are those things that was created on twilight of in the eve of Shabbat? So it says like this: 10 דברים נבראו בין השמשות. 10 things were created at twilight of Shabbat Eve. These are the mount of the earth that swallowed Korach. So Korach is a story we have in the Jewish Bible that talks about um, Korach was a Levite, one of the elders of the tribe of Levite, and he was there challenging Moses and challenging Aaron, which was Aaron was the brother of Moses, and both Aaron were also Levites, and he was challenging their status and their treatment of the Jewish people, and basically he challenged the fact that while they are in charge, Moses then asks him, or basically agrees to the challenge, and say, no problem, you want let's just let God decide who should lead the community, who should lead the people. Korach agrees, and they all come together to one place. They made incense, and basically there was a giant gap opened up in the ground and swallowed Korach and swallowed everybody with him. the entire community, that his entire congregation that he brought with him to challenge Moses, and Moses overcame. And it's a story in the Torah that teaches us about not how like that Moses prevailed or anything. Rabbis didn't really um, commentated or wanted to, or when they discussed that story, they said like, oh, look at Moses, he's the, the greatest ever. They were more looking at like, if it was, you already had a status, you just wanted more, or you just wanted more for yourself, you didn't really care about the people, because he was a Levite, he was rich, he was considered to be one of the richest people in the desert. One of the commentaries that we have on Korach is that when the Egyptians gave all their money, their gold and silver and jewelry to the Jews, Jews basically took it. And Korach took so much, and he was so rich that he had 300 donkeys that carried just keys to his safe. So just the keys to his safes, he had many, many safes with huge amount of gold and silver and copper and whatever in the things that he took. And he had 300 donkeys. So he was rich already. So, and he already had spiritual status because he was a Levite. So what else did he wanted? He wanted more, and that's really how um, we look at it in Judaism, and not so much as the fact that Moses prevailed, but more of his behavior, basically what brought him down. So basically the gap, the hole in the ground was created on the twilight of Shabbat. The mount of Miriam's well, so basically the opening of the well of Miriam that um, gave water to the people of Israel when they were in the desert. They had no water because it's a desert, or as it is translated many times to be a wilderness. So the wilderness has no water source, right? Unless you're in an oasis, and they weren't in an oasis, so they had the well of Miriam, and that was created on the eve of Shabbat. The mount of Bilam's donkey. So Bilam was a character in the Torah. He was a sorcerer that was asked to make a curse, or to curse the Jewish people. Bilam was basically the sorcerer of all the nations that was around in that area. And we have other commentaries on Bilam that he was actually one of the advisors of Pharaoh. So Pharaoh had three advisors: was Bilam, Job, and Jethro, Yitro. Bilam, Iyov, Yitro, and they were his Pharaoh's three advisors. And when he asked them on where should they go, what should they do with the Jews, Yitro and Jethro basically told them, don't touch the people of Israel, because God will punish you. Job remained silent, and Bilam told Pharaoh to throw all the firstborns to the Nile River, and Pharaoh chose that. And basically, the story goes that because of that, there was a prohibition on having kids in the Jewish community, because Pharaoh was killing all the kids. And then there was a challenge there, and after that, Moses was conceived and born. And when they couldn't hide him anymore, they put him in the Nile River. Pharaoh's daughter found him, and the whole story. So Bilam is a character that is mentioned in the Torah, and the amount of his donkey. So the story goes that he was called upon the Midianites to curse the people of Israel when they were in the desert, and they asked to pass through Midian to come into the land of Israel. He was called by the king of Midian to curse the people of Israel. He the first time refuses, the second time he says okay, and when he was on his way to curse the people of Israel, his donkey saw the angel of death and froze in his place, and he started hitting the donkey, and the And then the donkey basically opened his mouth and told them, "Why are you hitting me after everything we've been through together?" And there is a story there that is quite interesting. So his mouth, the ability of the donkey to speak, was created on the eve of Shabbat. The rainbow that we know from the story of Noah, when God makes a truce or makes a treaty with humanity and saying, "I will not destroy the world again in a flood." The manna. The manna was the food, the sustenance that the people of Israel ate in the desert, and manna in Hebrew is man. Man means two words. That man is basically two words connected together that says manhu, mahu. It's like an acronym. It's like, what is this? We don't know what this is. In the manna is something that is foreign. I don't think anybody have ever seen a manna after the people of Israel came into the land of Israel. And that's also the story is that they stopped having manna. I think a couple of days before they came in. The staff, Moses' staff that he used to part in the sea and to turn the Nile River into blood. The shamir. So the shamir is a very interesting device. It's considered to be like a worm or a worm-looking device or creature or something, and it was used for one task and one task only. We have a commandment in Judaism to build to construct a temple to God, but there is a prohibition against using metal to chisel the rock when we're building an altar, when we're building a temple to God. So if we have a prohibition to chisel the rock, how are we going to shape the rocks to make a square altar or to make a building? And basically, the story goes that King Solomon commissioned one of his officers to go and find the shamir, that specific device, and they were using that to cut the rock, and it was cutting the rock, and they used that machine or that creature to cut the rock and to build the temple. Again, not something that we know of today. We don't know. When we want to cut a rock, we use either a stronger rock, like we use diamond saws or something like that, or maybe water pressure. I don't know if water pressure can cut giant rock like that. I don't know. But anyway, they use the shamir. They use this specific device creature. The writing. So the writing is written language. So written language was created on the eve of Shabbat. And here we can go into the whole debate of when do we measure the creation of humanity? Like how did the Jews came up with 5,782? We're about to be in 82. So how did we came up with that specific number? It's basically from well, there are different opinions, right? So one opinion is that when we started having written language, when we achieved that goal as humanity, when Adam, first man, when he um, was able to harness written language, is when we basically the world was created, right? Because we know that Adam was created when he was already like 20 years old when he was formed from ash, and when God put a soul into his ashly earthly body. So the writing, the inscription, and the tablets of the Ten Commandments. So basically the Ten Commandments was there before or during the creation of the world, right? The whole idea. The Ten Commandments are for the Jews, for example. They're for the people of Israel. They're not for the whole world. There's a lot of people in the world that wanna say they follow the Ten Commandments, but if you put their feet to the fire and ask them what the Ten Commandments really say, they would never know one word correctly about it. But anyway, the Ten Commandments was created on the eve of Shabbat. And some say also the burial place of Moses. So this is an interesting thing, right? So we don't know where Moses is buried. Like Moses, the character that created Judaism, that created that gave us the Ten Commandments, that parted the sea, like this mythical individual that brought in from God the 10 plagues on the Egyptians and everything. We don't even know where he's buried, right? We know where Aaron is buried, we know when his brother is buried, but we don't know where Moses is buried. We know where Joshua is buried. We don't know where Moses is buried. We know where Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and Rachel and Leah and and Rivka. We know where all of them are buried. We don't know where Moses is buried. It's quite interesting. We know where Joseph is buried. We know where his brothers are buried, but we don't know where Moses is buried. But his burial place, as it says, as the description in the Torah, is that God buried him. Basically, God buried him and sealed his grave when he was 120 years old. Also, it says that the ram that Abraham used was created on the eve of Shabbat. So the ram, as we know, was the story of the Akedah, the sacrificial act of Isaac that was uh, instructed by God. God instructed Abraham to sacrifice his son to prove that he is worthy to bring his matches to the world or whatever. And then, as soon as Abraham comes to sacrifice his son, God stops him. And then he says, "Here, use this ram." And they used a certain ram. That ram was created on the eve of Shabbat. There's actually a story behind that. Why did the sages of Judaism they wrote that um, basically to prove. I mean, this is the proof that God never intended for Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, and Abraham knew that because as soon as Isaac was born, God, even before that, God told them, within Isaac, you will have a seed to continue you. So if Isaac will be the seed, how can it be that God is asking Abraham to kill Isaac? So it was just a test to see if Abraham was listening. He did listen. He got a ram. They sacrificed him. That ram was created in the eve of Shabbat. Also, some people say that the spirit of destruction, as well as the original tongues, for tongues are made with tongues. So let me just elaborate on that. What is the spirit of destruction? The spirit of destruction is um, evil inclination within man that want to spill other men's blood. That would be the spirit of destruction. Why is that? And what are those original tongues? So when you're a blacksmith, right? We're talking about humanity. It took a while until it figured out how to use steel and to shape metal or whatever. So you need a device to remove things from the furnace. What is that device? So that device is the tongs, right? The actual tongs, the metal tongs that grab the ore or the super heated metal that you have in the furnace. You need something that is metallic to grab it and then get it out of the furnace, and then you start banging on it and shaping it into a sword, into whatever it is that you want to shape it into, right? Or a hammer, whatever, an axe, a shield, I don't know. So the first tongues was created by God because you need tongues to create tongues. That was the sentence here. That you need actual tongues to create other tongues and then get them or get stuff out of the original furnace. So the spirits of destruction is when man was able or was given the ability to form metal, also was given the ability for man to take life, to slaughter animals, to kill each other, to go to war. Um, that's basically what is said here. And those are the 10 things that were created in the eve of Shabbat. Some we know today, like the tongues, and most of them or the rainbow, and the rest of them we don't even know. We don't know where they are. We don't know what's the story behind it. But those are the 10 things that, except the rainbow and the tongues, like, again, not the original tongue, but the rainbow that we see, we don't have any connection with them today. Like, we don't know where they are. We don't know where are the original tongues, and we don't know what happened. We don't know what happened to them. Another interesting mention there is the book of Isaiah, chapter 54, verse 16. Is a mentioning of the first blacksmith, right? Because the tongues was used by the blacksmith. So who was that original blacksmith? It says like this: Behold, I have created the blacksmith that blow the fire of coals, and created a weapon for his work, and I have created the tyrant to destroy. So Isaiah the prophet prophesies on this character, right, the original blacksmith, that he forged weapons to this original tyrant, right? It could be Nimrod that is mentioned in Genesis. It could be other characters, but the idea is that God created the first blacksmith. Then we go and we see another mention in the book of Genesis, chapter 6, verse 4, book of Bereshit. It says like this: The Nephilim were in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. So there is a mentioning that there were other creatures, right? Another society called the Nephilim. They were in the earth of course, after God expelled Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden, and those Nephilim, they were considered to be the sons of God, right? Which is not foreign in the Torah, because also Jews or the people of Israel are considered to be the sons of God. So they were a creation of God, and they came in unto the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. So we see that there is creatures that, like I said, we as a society, we as humanity do not know. We don't know who the Nephilim were, but they lived among us, and not only that, they also was able to procreate with us and bring children to this world. Now, why am I mentioning this? Because there are cases, right, of people that claim that they were abducted by aliens, right? And part of those claims is that one, they had to be in certain relations with those aliens that they have been abducted by, and there's certain women that said they had to bear children to those aliens, and there's certain men that said they had to um, procreate with those alien women or whatever that happened there. So it's quite interestingly that we have a mentioning of this, of basically human or interspecies relationship in the book of Genesis, and then we see people that claim that they were abducted by aliens, and they come up with basically with the same story, which is not very far, which is not very unheard of, right? When a new species usually come to a new land, or when we find different species, there is some kind of a, I guess if they're compatible, right, if they can mate or whatever. Is another mentioning of an alien thing, right? So it says like this in Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 19. There is an instruction on, basically, Moses tell the people of Israel what to do, or when, or if, right? Because not necessarily something that we will do, if we will meet some kind of an alien being, right? Or some kind of things that are out of this world and we have no idea how to deal with it. So there is an actual instruction, there is an actual commandment by God that was passed through to Moses to give to the people of Israel. What happened when you see those creatures, when you see those things? And it says like this: when you lift your eyes onto the heavens, and when you see the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the hosts in the heavens, don't draw away and worship them and serve them, which the Lord thy God have scattered on to all the peoples under the whole heaven. So here we go. For example, let's just say we have a doomsday situation, right? Some giant spaceship coming down from the heavens. I don't know. And people are saying that, hey, um, we should start worshiping them, right? Uh, Actually, what God is telling us here is that not only we don't need to worship them, they are God creation. Like um, they are basically just like us. It will be a sin to worship them. Just the fact that they're stronger and they come from another place doesn't mean that they're any different from us. They're just beings that are created under God, and God scattered them all over the universe, right? So it won't be like an moment if a spaceship will land in the middle of, I don't know, Jerusalem, and they'll be like, oh, you gotta worship us now. We can be like, no, 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 God already told us you might be coming, and okay, now you're here. We know that you are like us. We know that you are part of the creation of God. And I think this is something here a little bit more theological than just how I'm trying to simplify it, because basically the basis of Jewish philosophy is that God is everything and He created everything. So if we see another thing, it's obviously being created by God. So you can't really say, like, just because they have giant spaceships and they come in from the heavens or wherever they come, then God don't exist. It actually means the opposite. And God told us thousands of years ago that, hey, if they'll ever come and you ever encounter something like that, then you should know, hey, I created them and I put them where they are. I just put you guys in here and I put them over there, and here we go. Now you see them, don't worship them. They're not gods. They're just other people, right? They're just a guy. They're just a dude. They just happen to be from another planet. There's another thing. There's a mention in the book of Judges, in chapter 5, verse 20 to 23. There is a mention of a planet with inhabitants on it, and the planet called Meroz. And there is a story like this: the people of Israel were in struggle during the time of the judges to basically conquer or liberate the land of Israel from the 7 nations that occupied it. They go to war against Sisra, the king Sisra. He was an Aramaic king that came and fought the people of Israel, and the people of Israel overcome. They won the war, but it says like this: they fought from the heavens. The stars in their courses fought against Sisra. So the people of Israel had some kind of a celestial help to fight Sisra, because they're just people, right? They just came from the desert. They don't have weapons. They don't have much things. They didn't need to fight that many fights in the desert, but they did fight. But to fight against a well-organized army when you're just a group of tribes, that was extremely hard for them to do. And here it says that from the heavens, right, there was stars. There was something from the heavens, something from the sky came down and helped the people of Israel to fight against the king Sisra. And then when there is a recall of everything that happened during that fight, the judge of those days, his name was Barak, he basically said this: Cursed ye Maroz, said the angel of the Lord, curse ye bitterly the inhabitants thereof, because they came not to the help of the Lord, to the help of the Lord against the mighty. The mighty would be Sisera. What do you mean Meroz? Meroz is a planet, right? We know it's a planet. The angel is Barak, right? Barak, he was the judge of this day. So he cursed bitterly the inhabitants of the planet Meroz. Who are they? Right? What are they doing there? Why didn't they help the people of Israel? Are they some kind of a spiritual, mythical beings? Are there people like us? Are there little gray men? Are there little green men? We don't know, but we know that there was some kind of a heavenly fight between the people of Israel and Sisera, and the people of Maroz, the inhabitants of Maroz, chose not to come. They chose not to come, and there was a curse against them in the book of Judges. That's interesting, right? In Second Kings, there is a story about Elijah the prophet, going with a fire chariot onto the heavens. So, what I'm trying to establish here is an image of really we have things that are alien to this world, alien to our society, but in the time of the Bible wasn't so alien to those people. So they had connection probably with things from other planets, other stars. They had ways to communicate with them. When the people of Israel went to war, apparently some of those inhabitants from different stars came and helped them in the war against Sisera. Now, are they aliens? Are they angels? What does that mean that all the stars came and fought with them, like an actual planet came, or people from that planet? There's a lot of philosophical debate around it. I'm just kind of mentioning these things to kind of think about it. But what I want to show now is that not only that they can come here, we can also go over there. So how did we basically, when in history we went over there, is the story with Elijah, that he was going with fire chariot onto the heavens. And the verse goes like this: And it came to pass, as they still went on and talked, that, behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, which parted them both sunder. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into the heavens. So we see that Elijah went up by a whirlwind into the heavens using that divine fiery chariot, right? So the chariot, some kind of a device, took Elijah to the heavens. So here we go, we see him going up, and then we see in the book of Judges of them coming down. Then we see something interesting. Ezekiel the prophet also describes a chariot, right? It says, Now it came to pass in the 13th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river of Kvar, that the heavens were opened and I saw visions of God. Right? This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And when I saw it, I fell upon my face, and I heard a voice of one that spoke. And I looked, and behold, and there was a hand was put forth unto me, and a roll of book was therein. So we see that Ezekiel, from the story of Ezekiel, we know that he also saw a chariot of God. Definition that he used was the Merkava, some kind of a device that is used to transport those heavenly creatures, or those heavenly encounters. Is called a Merkava. He saw that, right, on the river of Kvar, We also know he wasn't alone, right? Because he was among the captives by the river of Kvar. So there was other people there. And we know that river exists until this day in Iraq. Interesting. As of today, that place still exists, and we can go and see it. But it says like this: that not only that he saw um, something, right? He saw the chariot coming down from the heaven. Not only the story of Elijah describes the chariot going up, he saw something coming down, but he also saw something that is in the likeliness of the glory of God, right? And he had a book, and he had a hand, he had things that can be literally manifested into our existence today. Like this is something we know what a hand is, we know what a book is, we know what a scroll is. So he saw that coming down from the heaven. So thought that was quite interesting to see a relationship between not only stuff that can go up, but things that can go down, and not only that, that we can go back and forth between up and down. We can go back and forth between those different worlds, or these different different existence, universes, whatever it is that you want to define it. And yeah, and it says that it was written within and without. So what do you mean within and without? There is an idea that the scroll that he saw was written on future events. So we need to kind of understand what does it mean that um, throughout the Jewish Bible, right? Throughout the Jewish the Torah, the prophets, and the writings, it's all written in present tense. Some prophecies are written presently by someone in the present on an act that will be in the future, but there is nothing that is written on a future event by no one, right? So for example, if there's a prophecy um, by Jeremiah that we will go in exile. Basically, Jeremiah is there and he's telling the people, okay, we have been sinning so much that now God is going to be destroying the temple, and we all going to exile. And what did we saw? Jeremiah went into exile with the people of Israel, right? We saw that. We heard them saying that, and we saw, and he went into exile. We saw that. Um, with Elijah, we saw that with Ezekiel, and we see it with Ezekiel right now. Right? He describes something that he saw. I was with people, something happened, this what happened, I'm writing on it. But now I have a scroll that is written within and without. Within, it means things that happen, without, things that will happen in the future. Continue on to chapter 40 of Ezekiel. It says like this. He basically sees an alien, right? But I don't want to say an alien because people will think like lizard people, right? He sees a man, right? He says, behold, there was a man whose appearance was like the appearance of brass, with a line of flux in his hand and a measuring reed, right? The story goes, and he would describe them, how the third temple is going to look like, and how it should be built, and the measurements and everything. But Ezekiel said he saw a man, right? A man that had an appearance of brass. He was wearing some kind of a shiny armor or some kind of a shiny suit. So one, we see a man, Elijah, going up to the heavens, right? And two, we see a man coming down from the heavens and give instructions to Ezekiel, the prophet. So where is those heavens, right? Where is those? How come that we as humanity don't have that relationship anymore, that connection anymore? Well, basically, we do. We just don't use it. Like in Judaism, we believe that the gate to the heavens is always open. Just we are in such a spiritual place right now that we cannot connect into it. But it seems like it was something very, very natural to the prophets and to the people in that time, that not only things can come down from up above or from other planets or other dimensions, or um, it doesn't matter where. Like there is things in this world that we do not know today, but was very, very natural to the people in those times, not only it was natural, they had ways to define them. Like Ezekiel defined it as a man, right? Barak the judge called them inhabitants, right? So he knew that there was many of them, those creatures, or he didn't call them men, he called them inhabitants of the planet Maroz. Um, and like I said, Elijah goes up in a chariot, right? There's a chariot that takes him up into the heaven. Whoa. So can we get access to that chariot? There's another question. There's another interesting thing. It says that the plate, right? The high priest of the temple, he used to wear a gold plate with 12 different gems on it, and each gem referred to one tribe of Israel. And the teaching we taught that what the plate was, it was a question and answers device. So, for example, when the plate was, it was a gold plate, and on it was the different gems. In the plate itself, there was a parchment with God's name on it. And whenever the people of Israel were um, or basically they had a dilemma, or they were wanted to question something, and the story goes that they went into the high priest and they asked the plate, and the plate used to either rearrange the gems or also to illuminate in certain patterns, and that would give the answer to the people of Israel, or whatever that question was. So what is that plate? Can we make it today? Technically, yes. We got the instructions. We got the exactly. We know exactly what to do to make the plate. We know the parchment. We know what's need to be written in it. We know the stones that were on the plate. Uh, Now, if we make it, can we communicate with it again? Was that a communication device? The plate? Yes, it was a communication device with God actually, and interesting. Also, the ark was a communication device. It says that the cherubs that was on the ark, whenever God was pleased with the people of Israel, they used to face each other. Whenever God was unpleased with how the people of Israel acted, they used to face apart, away from each other. So was the ark a communication device? Some people say it was a weapon. There's all kind of interpretation what was the ark, and those different things. But as we know, the ark was made of earthly materials, right? Wood and gold, and the plate of the high priest was made of earthly material, right? It was gold and parchment and stones, gemstones, and also the threads that hold the plate on the chest of the high priest. So, can we use earthly things to communicate or to go up into the heavens? Probably we can. There is a very, very big chance that we can. It was something interesting that I saw when I was researching for this topic, is that there was a guy, his name was Bob Lazar, right? Jewish guy, obviously. Lazar is a Jewish name. He used to work in Area 51, where they were making, or they were experimenting on those alien spaceships. And he said that the reactor of the spaceship was basically some kind of element that you put on some kind of a metallic disc, and when you put them together, they start working. They start creating that energy field with no wiring, with no kind of electronics or whatsoever. It's basically just those crystals. The ones they're aligned on each other, they start working. And that made me think about the breastplate of the high priest, that it's just gold and gemstones, right? People walk around with diamond rings all day, but this is gold and gemstones that you put together. And gemstones are basically just crystals, right? There's some kind of elements. Once you put them together, now you can start communicating with the heavens. Anyway, this was my take on Judaism and aliens. If you have any more questions, I'll be happy to answer. Please subscribe and share. And God bless us all. And Thank you very much for listening.